Hey everybody, this is my thoughts on Breath of Death 7 The Beginning and Cthulhu Saves the World. These are both JRPG style games by Zeboyd Games that were first released on Xbox Live Indie Games and then later on released for PC. And they were both sent to me by Juice Finn, so thank you for that, it is greatly appreciated. The interesting thing about these games is that they're both parody games. Breath of Death 7 The Beginning is in particular easy to notice because it's Breath of Death 7 The Beginning, and there's no 6 prior games to this. Cthulhu Saves the World is just completely absurd in its premise. Cthulhu has to become a hero to regain his powers, basically. It's pretty ridiculous. And both of these games are retro-styled JRPGs, which means that they're pixel art, and it's pretty decent pixel art for the most part. It's very bright and colorful, and it certainly has that very nice retro feel to it. It looks like something that came out of the NES, SNES era, and that works quite well for it. The music's pretty catchy. A lot of 8 and 16-bit kind of stuff that just works pretty well for the most part. Like I said, very catchy. Particularly with Cthulhu Saves the World, actually. The music in Breath of Death 7 isn't quite as good as Cthulhu Saves the World, but that's mostly because the soundtrack for Cthulhu Saves the World was actually made specifically for the game. So the one for Breath of Death 7 is just more stuff that the developer put in there that was already existing. So it doesn't really fit together as well as the stuff in Cthulhu Saves the World. There's no voice acting to speak of, and all the sound effects are what you would expect from a basically 16-bit era JRPG. Nothing complex. So the presentation certainly fits what they were going for very well. And the games themselves are rather amusing, actually. They're quite funny. They have a very good sense of humor, they're very well written, and they tend to break the fourth wall quite a lot. It's very obvious you're not supposed to take these games very seriously. They outright make fun of the whole JRPG tropes that they're outright using. So it's nice to have a fairly lighthearted take on JRPGs, and that sort of thing is very refreshing with the far too overly serious JRPGs that come out of Japan, actually. You look at stuff like Final Fantasy, and it's become basically soap opera levels of drama. And it's just stupid. Then you get to something like this, and it's like, I actually like this because it's funny, and it's lighthearted, it's adventurous, and that sort of thing. But here's the thing. They're JRPGs at heart, which means that they have all of the same problems that all JRPGs have, as far as I'm concerned. The combat is entirely menu-driven. It's pretty much non-interactive. You choose options from a menu, and you watch the damage roll up, and that's pretty much it. They do try to throw in some different takes on that by throwing in a combo system, where you build up combo as you hit the enemies, and you can use a combo finisher to basically deal massive damage. It doesn't really work out as well as it might later on. I kind of gave up on these games after a few hours because, like I said, they have the same problems that every other JRPG has. They're just boring to play. Now, admittedly, that's mostly me. I don't care for that style of game at all. I can't put up with that level of tedium. And when you have it being the foundation of the game, that's a pretty big issue. Even with that rather good sense of humor, even with the clever writing and all that, I found myself just bored of them within a very short period of time, and I just can't bring myself to finish these games. No matter how well made they might well be. And they are. If you're into this sort of thing, these are certainly well worth playing because, again, they're very well made. They make fun of the tropes. You'll probably get a lot more out of it if you are actually a JRPG fan. Mostly because, again, it's making fun of things that you're very familiar with in a very lighthearted and loving kind of way. And it's pretty obvious that Zeboyd Games did have fun making this, and they put in quite a lot of effort. But again, the combat system is so boring. And this is the problem I have with every other JRPG out there. I don't like going into a game where pretty much the only gameplay to speak of is a menu-driven combat system that is incredibly static. It's just a line of enemies in front of you, and you just select options from a menu and wait for things to happen. That is not entertaining to me. That is boring. And luckily, they're not throwing in incredibly long, flashy cutscenes or shoving a story down your throat that's just ridiculously overdramatic and frankly stupid. They're not throwing in a lot of stuff that makes no sense whatsoever. But the only real interactivity you get is moving around, clicking through menus, and that's it. There's not really much to this game as far as its gameplay goes. Well, these games as far as their gameplay goes. And ultimately, I just can't get past that. Like I said, if you like this sort of game, you will probably love these two games. Because it's very easy to tell. They're very well made. They appeal to people who are fans of this genre. And if you like those, you'll get something out of them. Unfortunately, I can't stand JRPGs. They bore me to no end. And that's why I have a hard time recommending it to anyone except people who are already fans of this genre. If you're not a fan of this genre, they're certainly not going to get you into it. If you're like me, and you just find these games incredibly boring, then these aren't going to change your mind on that. But for those of you who do enjoy them, they're worth a shot, especially considering they're so cheap. I'll have a link in the video description box to where you can pick them up if you're interested. Thanks for watching.